Wikipedia says, the term Islamofascism is a neologism which draws an analogy between the ideological characteristics of specific Islamist movements from the turn of the 21st century on and the broad range of European fascist movements of the early 20th century, neo-fascist movements or totalitarianism. One can also explain Islamofascism that it refers to the use of the cult of Muhammadan Islam as a cover for totalitarian ideology. The term Islamofascism was first used in 1990 in Britain's independent newspaper by Scottish writer Malise Ruthven, who was writing about the way in which traditional Arab dictatorships used religious appeals in order to stay in power. Do Wahhabism, Salafism, Hezbollah, Muslim Brotherhood, and Ahmadinejad have anything in common with fascism? The answer is most definitely yes. Before I continue elaborating upon this subject, I want the listeners to be shocked into the unspoken reality and be made aware at this very beginning that all these isms are the result of total misunderstanding by most Westerners of the actual source of the disease of Muhammadan Islam. This disease has absolutely nothing to do with any type of European ideology, because the source of this disease is a virulent virus that was created by Muhammad 1400 years ago in the Arabian Peninsula called Quran. A virus so destructive that it obliterates the areas of the brain of the victim or host, dealing with logic, compassion, and mercy, turning them into zombies, the living dead. For those who are in disbelief, outrage, or shock at my statement, please listen carefully to the Quran's verses before condemning me. Al-Tawbah 9.29. Fight, qatilu, those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden, which had been forbidden by Allah and His Apostle Muhammad, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, Islam, even if they are of the people of the book, Christians and Jews, until they pay the jizya, poll tax, with willing submission and feel themselves humiliated. Al-Ma'idah 5.51. O ye who believe, take not the Jews, Yahud, and the Christians, Nasara, for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other. And he amongst you that turns to them for friendship is of them. By any stretch of the imagination, this is a declaration of war against all those who do not believe as Muslims do. This is racism against 80% of current humanity. The similarities, if not almost identical characteristics, between Muhammad's Quran and Hitler's Mein Kampf, I have already clearly demonstrated in my chapter of the same title. Ladies and gentlemen, please be aware that only 1400 years separated der Muhammad from der Hitler. Otherwise, both Quran and Mein Kampf are hate-mongering, warmongering, racist, misogynist, vile, and hence ungodly scriptures. Al-Imran 3.19. The religion before Allah is Islam, submission to His will. Al-Imran 3.85. If anyone desires a religion other than Islam, submission to Allah, never will it be accepted of him. And in the hereafter, he will be in the ranks of those who have lost. Al-Imran 3.56. As for those disbelieving infidels, Jews, Christians, pagans, etc., I will punish them with a terrible agony in this world and the next. They have no one to help or save them. Al-Imran 3.118. O ye who believe, take not into your intimacy those outside your religion, pagans, Jews, Christians, etc. They will not fail to corrupt you. They only desire your ruin. Rank hatred has already appeared from their mouths. What their hearts conceal is far worse. Here we have, from the horse's mouth, so to speak, Islam über alles, Hail Muhammad. These few verses are only the tip of a gigantic mountain of lies, deception, hate, terror, joylessness, subjugation, war, racism, historical dislocations, contortions, and stupidity. Let us now look at the similarities of European fascism and Islamic fascism. Both movements are based on a foundation of murderous violence that exalts death and destruction, but despises the life and freedom of the intellect. Both are obsessed with real and imagined humiliations and thirsty for revenge, and are obsessed and bitterly nostalgic for past empires and lost glories. Islam wants to bring back the caliphate of 1400 years ago, or subjugate Spain, Andalus, as it was under the Umayyads 700 years ago. Both exhibit the same chronic anti-Jewish paranoia. Al-Ma'idah 5.82. You will find the Jews and disbelievers the most vehement in hatred for the Muslims. Both are inclined to leader worship, Muhammad and Hitler, and to the exclusive stress on the power of one great book, Quran and Mein Kampf. Both have a strong commitment to sexual repression and the subordination and subjugation of the female and contempt for the feminine. Al-Baqarah 2.223. Your wives are a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will. Muhammadan Islam relegates womanhood to the level of a field suitable for plowing and sowing seed, and the man as the tiller. The Muslim wife is only a sex object for the Muslim husband's pleasure and desires, when, where, and how it suits him. Sahih al-Bukhari 7.33, narrated by Osama bin Zayd. The Prophet said, "After me, I have not left any affliction more harmful to men than women." Both despise art and literature as symptoms of degeneracy and decadence. Both burn books and destroy museums and treasures. Example, the Taliban's destruction of the Buddha in Bamiyan and the looting of the Museum of History in Baghdad, Iraq. Sahih al-Bukhari 8.176, narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's Apostle said, "It is better for any one of you that the inside of his body be filled with pus, which may consume his body, than it be filled with poetry." Both fascism and Islam are distinguished from the broader category of extreme right-wing politics by their willingness to challenge authority, defy public civility, and openly violate the law. Nazism and fascism glorify the nation-state, while Muhammadan Islam glorifies the theocratic feudal state. As to the nation-state, Al-Qaeda demands that countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, and others should be dissolved into one great revived caliphate. This should remind us of Hitler's vision of a greater Germany or Mussolini's fantasy of a revived Roman Empire. Although Islam does not preach racial superiority or proposes a master race, it nonetheless claims the fascistic and racist concept of the pure and the exclusive Ummat Muhammad or Ummat al-Islam, 20% of current humanity, over the unclean all others of Ummat al-Kuffar, 80% of current humanity. For those who are unaware, Ummat al-Kuffar comprises all Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Zoroastrians, Jews, animists, atheists, etc. That is, all those who do not believe as Muslims do. In the propaganda against Hindus and India, for example, we see what amounts to be unadulterated hatred of the other, not based on race, but purely on religious beliefs. The Arab and Muslim attitude to Jews shows clearly that an inferior or unclean race is being talked about, not of demonizing the Jews only, but also of dehumanizing them, just like what was done by Goebbels, who would be very proud indeed of their anti-Semitic cartoons. After all, it was Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, who supported Hitler's extermination of the Jews and supplied the Nazis with Muslim divisions to fight against Russia. Dear listeners, Islamofascism is equal opportunity in its modus operandi because it also attempts the destruction of Muslims of either different race or sect, with the same penchant for slaughter as those meted out to Christians, Hindus, or Jews. For example, the attempted eradication of the Hazara people of Afghanistan, who are ethnically Persian as well as religiously Shiite, a serious case of ethnic cleansing, or the mass murder, slaughter, and rape of hundreds of thousands of black African Muslims in Sudan's Darfur by the lighter-skinned Arabized Sudanese. This is a case of both racial and sectarian racism. Without a shadow of a doubt, fascism, Nazism, and Islam constitute comparable threats to civilization and civilized values. Both these totalitarian systems of thought evidently suffer from a death wish. It is surely not an accident that both of them stress suicidal tactics and sacrificial ends, just as both of them would obviously rather see the destruction of their own societies than any compromise with infidels, or any dilution of the joys of absolute doctrinal orthodoxy. Thus, we have a duty to oppose and destroy these and any similar totalitarian movements. Both fascism and Islam represent a radical departure from the tradition of ultra-conservatism. The latter aims to preserve established social relations through enforcement of law and the reinforcement of authority. Both the fascist Mussolini, Hitler, and Islamist organizations, in their attempts to gain power, show no reluctance to rupture peace and repudiate parliamentary and other institutions. The fascists employed terror against both the existing political structure and society at large, as the Islamists are doing today. Islamofascism similarly pursues its aims through the willful, arbitrary, and gratuitous disruption of global society, either by terrorist conspiracy or by violation of peace between states. Al-Qaeda has recourse to the former weapon. Hezbollah and Hamas, in assaulting northern and southern Israel, used the latter. These are not acts of protest, but calculated strategies for political advantage through undiluted violence. Hezbollah showed fascist methods, both in its attempt at kidnapping of Israeli soldiers and initiating that action without any consideration for the Lebanese government of which it was a member. Indeed, Lebanese democracy is a greater enemy to Hezbollah than Israel. While European fascism was imperialistic within a certain area of the continent, Islamofascism, on the other hand, is global, since its publicly declared intention is to Islamize the whole world. In a nutshell, fear of Islam is totally rational, but not fearing Islam's clearly defined agenda is totally irrational.